see.
Recording.
There it is. I see it. Okay.
Hey,
Good.
this is Christine from Soulful Selling Bootcamp, and I'm here with Tiffany McLain from Hey Tiffany. So welcome.
Hi guys. Hi everyone.
Hi guys. So Tiffany, why don't you give a quick intro about yourself?
Sure. So I'll try to make it as quick as possible. Maybe we can get into it a little more later. I am a psychotherapist in private practice in San Francisco. And HeyTiffany.com, I'll back up a little bit. It came out of when I started grad school. I had this idea that I would go into a profession, becoming a therapist, having my own private practice where I could make six figures. That's one of my goals, and be able to help people that I am passionate about helping serve a particular kind of community. And when I imagined, okay, 3 years in and out, it'll be great. What actually happened, and I think what I've learned in talking to my colleagues, other therapists in the field, what actually happened is that I had a lot of professors along the way tell me, you're not actually going to be able to make money as a therapist in private practice. And I said, what? And I started to get the message from people that you can either help people or you can make money, and that you couldn't actually do both, and you had to choose between the two. So I decided that I didn't like having to choose between the two. So HeyTiffany.com is my effort to figure out a way to actually make money and help the people that I want to help doing what I love. So that's a little of the backstory.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I think that's such a common problem, that people do have that belief that they can't, have this job that they're passionate or do anything that they're passionate about and make money doing it.
Right.
So let me give you a quick intro if you guys are new to me about what I do. I'm Christine Pereira. I founded SoulfulSellingBootcamp.com, which I will type in. And my goal is really to help people grow their businesses in a way that feels authentic for them. So I talk a lot about, how you just really need to be yourself when you're selling. You can be an introvert. Like I'm an introvert, and I worked for sales in over 15 years. And sold over $100 million of products. And I did that all just kind of being myself, because that's the only way it worked for me. I mean, I will admit I tried different things along the way and they just never worked. And all that worked for me was just kind of being myself and being authentic. So I share that with people, and I'm actually doing a free training right now on Periscope, and you can sign up by email at soulfulsellingbootcamp.com/videos, where I talk about kind of the process I go through. I talked about today about like good fear versus bad fear. But I talked about mindset in the first video, Tiffany, and it was very much about, when a lot of people have fear around that ask in sales and asking for money. And it really is a mindset thing where, you don't look at it like I'm asking you for something. It's like I'm providing you a gift. I'm providing you something that you really need. And if the person doesn't need it, that's fine. Then they don't buy it. But it really is a mindset thing where you think like I'm sharing my magic with you. I'm sharing whatever my special gift is. And as entrepreneurs, I think that's why we're doing these things, right?
Yeah.
You don't become an entrepreneur because like you're lazy. You do it because you're so passionate about what you're doing that you need to share it with other people.
That's right.
Which is, so let's talk about what you just said about how some people feel that you can't make money doing that. Like, how do we change that?
So I watched your Periscope, the one you did today. It's fantastic.
Oh, okay, yeah. I know.
Yeah, actually the Periscopes are super informative and casual, but also have tons of value. So I was excited to watch that today.
Thanks.
One of the things that got me excited, so you were saying in the Periscope today that someone told you that even the idea of sales, even using that word is like an icky word.
Yeah.
And in the therapeutic community, that is super the case.
Interesting.
The idea of sales or marketing either makes people get anxious and overwhelmed, or they get angry at you, which I also think is probably out of anxiety and overwhelm as well. And so one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you today is because you come from a background where you were able to actually get money and have a big income, and then you left that because you wanted to marry that with your passion.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of therapists start out with a passion, but they have no idea how to obtain the money part. And it feels like you're saying, like that person said to you, in some way that's icky to have make money. So I was excited to talk with you because
Mm-hmm.
I would be curious to hear what you would say to people who are starting out following their passions, but the money part feels, or the sales part feels like there's some contradiction there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you from my personal experience, I mean, and I made a great income, like high, mid, six figures. And I kept, first of all, you spend what you make. And I think that happens a lot too. And that's like a financial management thing. But, I live in the Bay Area, one of the most expensive places in the world. So even though it was a lot, it was never enough. And the more money I made, the more money, like I would realize I have everything I need. I have enough cashmere sweaters. I have like a really nice car. I have all of these things, and none of these make me happy. And I did love, and I really thought about like, why do I do this work? And for me, I'm a person who needs like immediate gratification, not in like things, but more in like positive reinforcement. So sales was a good job for me because you get constant feedback, like someone's buying your product. But for me, it wasn't. And so I liked accomplishing that and that sense of accomplishment. And making the money, though, didn't make a difference. And I was like, why? And it really synced for me when I had kids and my son would ask, like, well, it's funny because kids really model what you do. And he would be like, I'm going, he would pretend he was going to work. And he would take like my computer case and he'd be like, I'm going to the office. And then he would start asking questions when he got older, like, what do you do at work? And, kids have such amazing wisdom. And because we would always tell him, well, your job is to play. Our job is to go to work and go to the office. And he would say, well, what do you do there? And it's like, it didn't even sync with me until like way later. That because I used to tell him, well, I help people because that's how I thought would be the easiest way to explain to him because I did help. And I really was motivated because I managed a team of people there. And they were why I showed up at work. And that's like how I got myself motivated to be there. But then I realized months later, I was like, oh my God, my job is to play, right? Everyone's job is to play and to be happy and to be joyful. Your job isn't to like go and work on a computer and call people up on the phone. It's to play. And then I remember telling him that later that I realized that my job is to play too and do things that I love. So, and it's funny, all this time I was really like searching. I was making this money. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I was so scared to leave the money because I have a mortgage, I have 2 kids. I was the main breadwinner for my family. And it was really scary, but I just kept getting this message like, internally, like, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. I would walk downstairs and apparently I bought a book, which I don't even remember buying, titled, It's Not About the Money. So I kept getting these messages. It's not about the money. It's not about the money. And so I was like, okay, like, and then for me, like different life events happen. I got fired from my job. They called it being laid off, but it was definitely getting fired. And I was like, you know what? I physically can't do this. I could feel like the tightness in my chest and the, I just felt miserable even thinking about going back into that industry because I was like, I just know now I'm not supposed to be doing this anymore. And it doesn't feel right. And even when I would think about it, I would like start to get sick. And, I could just tell that I was getting these physical like reactions to not working. And I had felt that way at work for a while, like just not happy and uncomfortable. And there was a point where I felt like I was on the verge of like, of something like a mental breakdown where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And it had been a couple months and then I got fired and I was like, awesome. Like, this is something new for me to do. And it's not about the money. And I'm very confident. I just have this belief that I have very strongly that if I do something that I love and I'm providing value, that the money's going to come. But it's hard to take that leap, I think.
It's interesting that you say this thing about even though you're making this good money, having this feeling inside, becoming more and more kind of shut down and not enjoying your life. And I think what happens for therapists, so I'm doing a survey about money and fees right now with psychotherapists. And I actually saw someone join recently, who's actually doing really well in this area. Right. I learned a lot from talking to this person. But this idea that therapists enter because they're passionate about it, but then they're afraid to ask for what they're worth. We don't even know what we're worth, so we don't even know how to charge or figure out what to charge. And then we end up taking on more and more clients who pay nowhere near our full fee, and slowly the things we entered into it for, to make a decent living, to help people, that part's starting to happen, and then to have a flexible schedule and be our own boss, that slowly goes down. We don't have a flexible schedule because we're having to take more and more people, and the overwhelm starts happening. So by the time I talk to a lot of therapists, they're in this place of fear and tightness and scarcity. And then they're actually starting to become bitter and resentful towards the clients that they took on who pay maybe a sliding scale fee or a lower fee. So they end up not being financially stable, and they're also, their hope of helping someone is actually not being fulfilled either, because they have this idea that it's me or them, and that sets up a terrible situation with one's clients.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not obviously like a good way to approach it. So I mean, what have you found in your Sorry, I just knocked something on my
I was hoping you guys were hearing my cat in the background too, but I think it's okay.
Hold on, I just want to these blinds are like blinding me. So what have you found in your research? Like what's the best way to deal with that? Or like what have you found just from talking to people about that?
So the majority of the people I talk to are in the place of where they're struggling with it. I think the people I've actually, interestingly, in the therapeutic community, there aren't tons of models of people who are able to do this and do it well. Right. There is two women, Miranda Palmer and Kelly Higdon of Zinni.me, who are actually been able to create an online business to supplement their private practice, which is awesome. Oh, nice. And then most recently, there's a guy named Martin who has a podcast called Selling the Couch, where he is attempting to make an income while also seeing people in private practice. So I've actually had to go outside of the therapeutic community to find people who don't buy into this zero-sum game or this scarcity mentality. And I think what has been most helpful for me, one is finding mentors. You were talking earlier about belief. You had to believe that there was a way you could do it. So for me, I had to find people who told me they're virtual mentors, so they didn't actually talk to me. But, in a broader way, they basically, in my mind, they're saying, Tiffany, you can do it. It is possible. And that actually gives me the impetus or the inspiration to keep going, even when I do get anxious or overwhelmed or stuck. I have to continue to believe that there is a way to help people and make money. So the first thing is to find people who you trust and who you believe in, who are doing the thing that you want to do, and kind of move away from the people who are saying it can't be done or you have to choose to help people to make money. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You surround yourself by positive, role model, the people who are like in that space you want to be in. Right. That's and I love the way you're saying they're virtual. Like maybe you don't even talk to them. You follow them on social media, but that still can be very inspiring for people for sure.
That's right. Yeah. So that's been a huge thing. I think another thing, and actually you and I talked about this a little bit a few weeks ago, something that has made a huge difference in my life is to start creating routines or systems, I like to call it, for moving forward, even when I start feeling anxious, overwhelmed, or doubtful of what I can do. I allow myself to have the feelings. We therapists are big on making room for the feelings, for sure. But having the feelings and making space for those, but still following the systems that I had set up for myself as a way to keep moving forward and not let the feelings take over. And stop me.
Give us an example of one of those systems. So this is like a kind of a process you go through to stay positive. Can you give an example of one?
I have. So there are two. I'll talk about one of the huge ones is having this morning routine. I heard about it from the first way I heard about this was through Anthony Robbins, where I used to think, oh, Anthony Robbins, he's so corny. But actually, he's this amazing entrepreneur who's done very well and inspired a lot of people. Yeah. So I heard that every morning he gets up very early, well before he has to get up, and he goes into his cold pool or the river back behind his house, and then his hot pool, and then he does this whole routine around getting himself ready for the day. When I first heard about that, I thought, well, I don't have a cold pool, and I don't have a river. So forget it. That's too much. I'm not going to do that. Impossible. Yeah. But I kept hearing actually that people who are actually successful in doing the things that I want to do have some kind of routine with which they start out their day.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I got, I heard of this guy who has this book called The Morning Miracle. The book was all right, but I really liked the foundation of what he was saying. And then I got another journal. Actually, this is the giveaway. I'm going to do a giveaway if you go to heytiffany.com/ the change. I'm going to be running a contest through the end of this year where somebody's going to have an opportunity to win
right?
the change. Yeah, put it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. So that journal has actually been one of the main things that has allowed me to stick to a system and be able to reflect every day on what I'm doing. So there's this thing called the 5-minute journal, and every morning and every night it has you go through. Have you heard of this journal?
I think I've heard of. Is this the one where you do 5 minutes of walking, 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of meditating?
This one is. It's not that, but I wonder if they're actually linked, or if the people who created
I have a couple friends have recommended that. But it's called something similar, like the Miracle something. But it was this great thing of you do these. I think like 5 in the morning.
That's right. I think that's the Miracle Morning.
Yeah.
And then this is a journal that I don't think they're. I wish I had it. I don't think they're linked, but I think a lot of people actually end up using them together.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think I've heard of that journal too, because my friend like highly recommended that I get it on Amazon. And I love that. That's great. And you know, it's so funny. I just heard another thing about morning routines. There's 2 women I follow that do, it's called the Mindful MBA, Vanessa Loader and Lisa Abramson, and they're great. And I follow them on Facebook. I took one of their classes a while ago. They really have inspired me quite a bit. And they posted a routine that was based on something, and I don't remember all the details. You can find them on Facebook though. And it was things like, you know, you write down a couple goals, but then also write down things you're grateful for.
That's right.
Which I'm like that, you know, there's so much, gratitude is such a big thing. I mean, there's even studies about gratitude and how it leads to higher sales and sales organizations. And, but I was like, that is such a great thing. And I started doing that with my kids at night too. We talk about, you know, tell me the things that you're grateful for. And I think that is like, for me, a really good routine too. I've tried to think of that in the morning. And I went through it, you know, you're giving me great advice now, because I need to get back to that. I went through, a period where I was like, how do I want to feel today?
Yeah.
I was like, I want to feel empowered, or I wanted to feel, you know, energized. And it was so interesting because just setting that intention, like amazing things would happen that day. And I'd be like, oh my God, remember I said that this morning. That's how I wanted to feel. So it was like, for me, even just doing that simple thing was amazing. Yeah. So I love this. And I think I need to get that book and like start into a routine.
Subscribe to my list and you'll be entered for the
drawing. Oh, awesome.
So this thing, that's exactly what it goes through. So every day it starts with a quote, and then sometimes they put in there things you like a challenge for the day, which is always a little bit nerve-wracking but exciting. And then they do have you go through the things you're grateful for, what you want out of the day, and then something about what your intention is for the day. So, and then at night they ask you questions about what you said you were going to do in the beginning of the day. So every morning and every night I have a chance to reflect on what I did that day. And what that actually allowed me to do is, I'm not an early bird, but because of this morning miracle, now set my alarm for 5:45, which is earlier than I have to get up.
Wow.
And by starting to do this journal, I then realized I had way more time in the morning. I started to go to bed earlier in the evenings. Those tended to be unproductive hours. So I get up early, and now I'll do something like go to the gym and start work at around 5:45, as opposed to staying up till 10 or 11 watching fantastic TV shows, but using those evening hours to just who knows what. So it's been a huge change in my routine, starting with this kind of idea of systems. Yeah.
So what's the journal called again? I want to type it in there for people.
It's called the 5-minute journal.
Yeah, I love that. And that sounds wonderful. And I think that it is nice to, and I've heard that too about like, you know, successful entrepreneurs. Our topic today, Alex, we're talking about how success is not random and how you can build confidence and create confidence. And right now we're just talking about how there are some people who have this belief that they can't do what they're passionate about and also make money doing it. And so we were saying, or Tiffany was saying that a lot of people follow this routine that they talk about in, what's it called? The Miracle.
The Miracle Morning is the
Miracle Morning. The Miracle Morning. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I love that. So one of the other things, you know, Tiffany and I talked a little bit before this because we did not know each other, but we had such an interesting conversation. So one of the things we were talking about is kind of like how your family background plays into this too. And how you were raised, it like has so much in put to how you think about money and you think about success. And it sounds like you've researched this quite a bit. And I mean, you're like a professional. I'd love to talk about that a little bit, because I thought that was so interesting. And I think that really affects your mindset. And I hate to bash, our parents or whatever, but because I am a parent now. And but you recognize certain things, and you think like, oh, that's so interesting. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
So when I started HeyTiffany.com, I like I said, I don't know exactly what it's going to become, but I had this idea that I wanted to help people who were maybe like I was 10 years ago. Neither of my parents went to or graduated from college. My mom was raised on a farm in Oregon and actually went to a one-room schoolhouse. Literally very like a religious conservative community. My dad was raised in Chicago. When he was born, it was one of the most violent projects in America. So both of them had a very particular kind of upbringing. And I think this is I'm going to do my best to not wax too philosophical on this, but there is something about people in our populations of people who have, for whatever reason, societally or historically, not had access, of course, to education, wealth. There's been what we call in psychoanalytic jargon, the intergenerational transmission of trauma. So this idea that trauma gets passed down. So what happened for me personally is I would have this idea, I want to do something, I want to be inspired. This is in my 20s. I'm going to go after this thing. And I would start going after it. And then I'd come up against an obstacle, and I would, like I talked about, get overwhelmed. Who am I to do this? No one in my family has been able to do this before me. Some of these things were conscious, but more so they were unconscious things that were getting in my way. So it actually took, for me personally, going to my own psychotherapy and also going through a program and learning about particularly psychoanalytic psychotherapy to help me get a foundation that helped me feel stable enough so that when I did come up against obstacles, I was able to continue to move forward despite those obstacles. So part of what I'm hoping to do with Hey Tiffany, and I think what you do and what a lot of the entrepreneurs who are putting themselves out there are doing, are actually serving as models for people who don't have models and have not had models for generations. Being able to overcome and move forward despite all of the human feelings and experiences that come up, societal obstacles that come up when we're trying to pursue our dreams.
And that's like, I think that even goes back to, your support group, right? And who you spend time with, because if everyone you're surrounding yourself with has a certain belief about money and your belief is different, it's very challenging, right? And, we talked about different people, and, I have friends who grew up in very small, very tight-knit communities, but that felt like they needed to leave there because they couldn't stay there and be successful, that they had to move outside and disconnect from all of their friends there to even be able to be successful. And that's how they coped with it. And I thought, like, that's interesting. I don't think everybody needs to do that, but it is really challenging if you're from a very tight community and everyone believes a certain thing.
That's right.
To be the person who doesn't. I mean, it's sometimes easier to leave that, which is interesting. I had a great question. Now I didn't write it down. I wanted to ask you.
It'll come back.
I mean, I think that's true, because I grew up in a family where, there wasn't like a ton of abundance, and my mom has like a little bit of scarcity issues, but my dad was very much the opposite. And so I always kind of thought, like, he really believed everything was possible, and he, would he would just introduce us to ideas like just that anyone could do anything. And then I do remember my mom saying, like, I think in like preschool or something, they ask you, draw a picture for like what you want to be when you grow up. And I think she has a story, and I don't remember it, but she tells me, she's like, you said like you couldn't be a doctor or a nurse or something or you couldn't be a doctor because only like men were doctors, or I guess I had said something like that. And she said, no, you can do anything, like really anything you want, and it doesn't matter like who you are. And and she says she told me that, and apparently I told her like, okay, then I'm going to be a lion tamer, because I think I had just gone to the circus, and I don't know. I remember there was a big circus poster in my room. That one I do remember. But I thought like that's great that she does believe. I think like deep down she like might have scarcity things, but she really tried to change that with her kids, which I really give her credit for.
Yeah.
She really tried to tell us, hey, especially because it was 3 girls. She really tried to tell us, hey, you can do anything. And it was more of like just because you're a girl doesn't mean you can't do things. So she really instilled that into us. So I was very grateful for that, and very lucky.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important, you alluded to this earlier, this idea of I don't want to blame my parents. And I actually, both of my parents, similarly, my dad was, even though he came from extreme poverty, his belief was you can do anything. And
awesome.
My mom was always loving and kind. She didn't quite know how to, the steps to move forward, but both of them were very supportive. But there is this thing of the unconscious messages they're giving, even when they're trying to give a particular message, the unconscious messages come through. So I think one of the things that would discourage me when I was growing up, and I would hear people talking about moving forward and you can do anything, I didn't have a sense that was true.
Well, you probably didn't know what anything meant, what's your version of anything if you've only been exposed to a very limited thing, right? Like you haven't even seen like the possibilities, right?
You can't even conceive of them. I was talking to someone, so I was doing interviews with people who were upwardly mobile, and someone made a comment about when she now lives in the Bay Area where I live and you live, and she made a comment about, oh, now I have learned how to put fig jam on a cracker with whatever kind of cheese. And so there are, even just in terms of culture or class, there are things that you don't even have exposure to. And if you're moving your way up and you're coming upon these things, a lot of things around shame can come up about not already having known certain things. And so a lot of these things can drive people to just give up or kind of settle for what they know. And I think that actually, like you were saying earlier, deprives the people we could possibly help from the potential of moving forward.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you let that fear come in and guide you, whether it's like a fear of what other people think or that you're not good enough, then you're holding yourself back and you're not able to share those gifts with people. And I think that is, like you're hurting not just yourself, but you're hurting everybody, because everyone, I believe, has like a special gift, many times more than one, that they, want to be sharing with the world. And we need to figure out what that is. For me, it took a very, very long time to figure that out, but I feel very confident about it now. And I think the other thing I was going to say is like, sometimes growing up in those types of families or families where you do not get the right message is that you get to see the contrast, right? Like you learn from not having it. Like I always say, I would not have been able to find myself like so specifically what I wanted to do unless I was so lost. And I just was completely out of touch with like myself. And I think that was necessary for me to really find myself.
That's right.
So, sometimes that contrast is helpful. And sometimes, there are people who grow up in incredibly challenging childhood situations. And I think, it's very hard to look at the positive in that, but I think, you can see that contrast of like, what do you want it to be like?
Yeah. I think I'm doing my best to present myself professionally today, and I am professional. But one of the things that excites me is the idea of the people who have had a challenge growing up, are awkward, or socially they're a little misfits, or they came up upon something internally that didn't match the world around them or the messages they were told they should be. And I think those are actually the most interesting people who have had to come to understand who they are because they didn't just kind of glide along with their family or the society around them. I think people who had it easy, they kind of, maybe they're a little bit boring. I don't know. But the people I've called this over, and it sounds like someone like you had to come to know yourself, and that actually allowed you to move forward and help other people.
Yeah. I mean, when you're saying that, I'm thinking of, do you know the book Conversations with God?
Yeah.
Neil Donald Walsh, she has a great story, and that book was really meaningful to me. For the longest time, I didn't read it because I thought it was a religious book. And then once you read it, you're like, oh, okay, not really. But he has such an interesting story because I don't think he goes into that much depth, but it sounds like he really had like challenges in his life, like his personal life, like maybe he wasn't the best like parent or husband or whatever. He was homeless.
Wow.
And he really changed his life pretty dramatically. And it sounds like, you know, he was really hard on himself, saying like, God, I wasn't like the perfect human being, not even close to it. But I think, you know, that's where you see these things. You know, I'll share another example with you that's very close to home for me. My grandmother was the most amazing, loving grandmother to me. Really, really close with her, but she was a recovered alcoholic, and she had 8 kids. My mom was like the third, and she really was in this intense like alcoholism with some of her younger kids. And they tell me stories where I would not even, I mean, horrible stories. She was a horrible mother to them, and yet to me, she was like an amazing gift. And it just shows you the power of how you can change. And I think about her all the time, like how amazingly strong she would have to be to forgive herself for all of that. And, you know, I was so lucky to have had that experience with her.
That makes me think of this thing that I'm going to ask you to articulate it, because I think you can articulate it better than I, but it's something that has actually helped me in my business and in looking, in putting myself out there. I'm actually pretty anxious and socially, like, I get shy. And so this idea you were saying earlier about selling, and not because it's some smarmy, so my dad is has been entrepreneur, but part of that has been being a used car salesman, which has all of these, of course, stereotypes about what that means. But something he actually impressed upon me was that his job as a salesman was to actually connect people with what they wanted, as opposed to trick people into buying something that they didn't want.
He was a great salesperson. He got it.
He is a great salesperson. And I think, even as you said that, I'm like, wait, but a salesperson. So actually, I'd like you to talk about this idea of selling not as a smarmy thing, but as a way to actually make a difference for people. Can you say something?
And I've talked about this a lot, and everybody does think about the typical used car salesman. And I don't know where that came from, but I do think, you know, people have that, and I think it's just a misguided perception. And I'm always curious, like, when people do sell that way, and I don't see it that often. I usually, you know, and I occasionally have seen it. I saw it from a dentist once, where it was like a very hard sell technique, where he kind of used fear and a little bit of pressure to sell me on something that I didn't really need. It didn't work on me, because I was like, and it's funny because I have friends who are dentists, so I was not worried about it. But I think it's people do that when, number one, they think that they're supposed to. Sometimes salespeople, you know, like if you work in an organization and you're a professional salesperson, sometimes you have a quota, and you have to. It's usually like at the end of the month or the quarter, and there are people who get really, really stressed when they're coming down to the end of that month.
That's right. And
they're not at the number that they want, and they think they're going to get fired. And that's where you see it come out too, where they're so worried. And that's how, if you're going to go buy a car, don't buy it at the end of the month.
That's right. That's true. That's true.
But I think that it's, you know, it comes from a place of fear. Or it comes from this, like, you know, misconception, because I think anyone would agree that even if you are a person who falls into that, and you're actually the buyer in that situation where someone really hard sold you, you're probably, number one, never going to buy that from that person again. And there's a very good chance you're going to return that item. Like, I used to love this one Nordstrom in San Francisco, and there was this really funny sales lady on this one floor who was like pretty hardcore, and just in that she would like kind of follow you around, and she would like keep following up, and I just stopped going up there. I'm like, I'm just not going up there anymore. Even though I wanted to look, I'd be like, I can't go up there because that lady's up there. But that, I mean, obviously that's not good long term. Maybe, and I remember I even know this, and she was hard selling me, but she pressured me so much. I remember buying things, and then I went back later and returned them. So I mean, I think everyone knows it doesn't work, but it's interesting. I think a lot of times it usually is either coming from a place of fear. And I think that was the case in the dentist too. I think that he was having financial problems, and he thought, you know, I need to start pressuring a couple people so I can get some money in the door this month.
He needed you to help him.
And when you come from that place, people don't want to, no one wants to connect with that. And I think if you come from a place of love and service when you're selling, it just changes everything. Like your dad said, when you find, I always say sales should be that win-win situation. And that's what he was saying.
Yeah, that's right.
He wanted to connect each person with the car that was right for them, which is such a gift. He's a gift to the whole, used car sales person population.
That's right.
That, because that is exactly what you're doing. And I actually bought a car 2 years ago, a used car. And I bought 2 cars because I leased one. We had just moved from the city, from San Francisco to the suburbs. And so I bought a minivan and I bought a used car because our car wasn't big enough. And one was from a used car salesman. And he wasn't bad, but he wasn't good either. And for me, it seemed like a lot of it was technique. Like he would ask me back question. I would say like, well, what's the lowest price? And he'd be like, what do you want it to be? I'm like, that's not what I want. And it was so funny because I met him later. Actually recently, this was 2 years ago. And like a couple months ago, I saw him in a Whole Foods and he totally recognized me.
Wow.
He was so nice. He was very different than he was. And I was like, that's weird, because I remember him being not salesy, but just kind of cagey, And I was like, I wonder why that is. I felt like I wanted to go back and like, I'm doing a course on soulful selling.
Really?
He's new. He's like, he's originally, I think, from somewhere in Europe, Eastern Europe. He had just moved here like probably 5 years ago. And I think maybe he was like figuring out the cultural stuff too, but he was a genuinely nice person. And I could tell he wasn't, like a sleazy person. And again, he didn't like hard sell me. It was just like a little weird that he would ask me those questions.
It was a technique he was learning.
Yeah. I was like, that's not what I want this conversation to be like.
That makes me think about this idea of having a technique. So with therapists, I think, I know once I got licensed, I felt much more free to bring elements of myself, not in terms of disclosing my personal life, but just genuinely coming forward in ways that I couldn't do when I was still in training or had some, super ego hanging over my head. When you were talking, I was thinking, so one thing that I do on the side every few years, and I really love it, is working with a death row attorney to help get people off of death row. And sometimes in doing this work, I am reminded of, I don't want to swear. I'm not going to swear on this show.
You can totally swear.
Okay. How fucked up it is. It's super fucked up. So I'll meet people who, maybe they're in their 20s or 30s or older, and they have never had access to anyone who actually asked them questions about their lives or took an interest in them, or even anybody who had kind of an open, I'll just say a thinking capacity or a capacity to be present. They had never encountered anyone like this before in their lives. And when I think about the work that therapists do, to even be somebody who can bring that to a person's life, I think about this idea you're now talking about of, if you're not putting yourself out there, you could actually be depriving somebody like this who has had a lifetime of rejection, being shut out, violence. You're depriving someone like that of having the opportunity to get in touch with parts of themselves and their thinking capacity and the rest of society. It's amazing. Yeah,
I think that's so true, because we think about our situations, right? And like where we live, and not recognizing. I mean, that's such a great point, that there are some people who really, grow up or have been in situations where it's so, so different. And those people might be so, so grateful to hear your message or what you're sharing, or really just even connect with someone. And I think that's amazing. And that's also why I think social media is so amazing. Because if you're introverted, or even you live in a remote area, I mean, there's so many things that you can connect. There's so many different types of people on social media, right? And I'm not promoting Facebook specifically, but anything where you can kind of find your tribe, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I grew up in New Jersey. I live in California now, and this is where I'm meant to live, no question. And I remember even growing up that I always knew I wasn't supposed to be in New Jersey. Not that I'm really happy I grew up there, because it gave me certain things. Especially in the East Coast, there's just like a different way people behave in general, not to be too, specific, but people are very straight to the point. Like, it really helped me in sales, but I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. And I love the Bay Area. It's like the perfect place for me. And it's like a little bit slower pace, and there's not as much pressure. But I think, you find that place that feels right for you. And I think like people recognize it. I think I went on a tangent there, but.
I think Janet just said something about how so many therapists are underpaid and overworked, and how sad it is, which she's right on about. And there's something about this thing you're talking about in terms of having a sense that, New Jersey wasn't the place for you for the long term, and you were able to move yourself somewhere else. There's this thing, I think, with therapists where they have the sense that if they just keep doing more, some opportunity will come. So they'll pick up a volunteer job, and then they'll pick up this work at an agency, and then they'll have a couple of little private practice clients on the side, and then they're taking on, and then if you add parenthood to it, I mean, I hear a lot of therapists are moms or dads, and it just becomes even more overwhelming. Yeah. And there's something, it makes me think back to this idea of having faith, and again, not in like the a woo-woo spiritual way, although you can if that works for you, but having a faith in that it is possible for you, and that there are people out there who have done it before you. I think if you have that kind of belief, you can actually cut back on some of those things and start saying no. That's been a huge part for me, is to start saying no to everything that doesn't line up with my two goals, which is to make six figures and to help people. And one of the things that has allowed me to do that, you're talking about online, it actually, like, through the internet, we have access to people in the rural towns, like where we maybe came from or where our parents came from. I think it's easy in a big city like San Francisco to forget that not everybody is in a city surrounded by access and resources. Right. So one thing to think about as a therapist in terms of how to do both, make money and help people, you can actually expand your practice, not legally in terms of providing therapy, but actually in finding other ways to serve people outside of your one little town. And I think, again, we're doing a disservice to people when we think like my work is one-to-one only in my little office, and I have to supplement it by taking on a million things that overwhelm me. Right. So this
and the thing that keeps coming up when you say this, I keep thinking like, do they not teach like self-care and things like that when you're dealing with it? Because that sounds like what's missing. Like there's just not a lot of self-care, and there's a lot of burnout, and that seems like such an important part. I mean, to be able to take care of yourself first, right? Because you have to take care of yourself before you can help other people. I mean, do therapists talk about that, or? There
is certainly a lot of lip service paid to self-care, but I think a lot of the therapists go into this work often out of some kind of masochistic need to put oneself second and help other people, which actually, as we've been talking about today, it's impossible to only put other people first. You can't.
Again, it says the system doesn't support it.
Yeah. That's right. So when I actually went into my own private practice, I realized I needed a consultant regularly, my own ongoing psychotherapy. I want to continue to get better, so ongoing education, and then things like going on vacation and being able to go get a massage, going to the gym. All those things cost money. And I think when we're in grad school, there's no. So in my survey question I ask about training in business, there's no training in grad school around how to actually run a business.
Huge. Yeah. You know what? It's the same in dentistry. Like I have a lot of friends who are dentists, and you were saying like marketing and sales is like, it's the same way in dentistry. And I actually just remembered that when you said that. But yeah, it sounds very similar. Yeah, like dentists don't get any, but you're essentially running a small business.
That's right. That's right.
Like pretty huge. I mean, that's what, like half of it. Like
that's right. That's right.
Know how to do that, and that's tough.
So you have all these people who are doing all this training in how to be really good therapists and how to really, be there and meet people, but they don't know how to get anyone to actually come into their office. And so to that question about self-care, I think it's there's some idea of shame or anxiety around thinking about money as a source of self-care. I think money just becomes this bad, evil, anxiety-provoking thing, as opposed to like, money is actually a concrete thing that allows you to be better at your practice. It's hard to hold it in mind.
It's hard. I remember being in college, and my parents paid for a little bit through loans, but I was responsible, like I worked almost full time my whole entire time in college. So I remember what that was like. And actually even into my like late mid 30s, actually longer. Like I remember living paycheck to paycheck, right? And I remember thinking like, this is such a stressful life that if my car gets booted because I couldn't afford to pay my original parking tickets, I have to come up with like however many $100 to get it. And like how stressful that is in your life. So I do see that, and I know how hard it is to get out of that cycle when you're living paycheck to paycheck, and that one little event, the car ticket, like the hospital visit, really just throws your whole life upside down. So it is hard to get to that place where you're not thinking that. You know, like my husband and I started a small business after I had like been making great money. We took this venture and thought we would start our own food business, which is not the most profitable, and we loved it. But we realized it wasn't something that was scalable, and so we closed it down. And it was really like, it took us like 5 years after that to get out of debt. I mean, it was very, very stressful. I mean, we were like bouncing rent checks. I mean, it was really, really tough. And this was before we had kids or anything. And I just remember kind of like, I guess just thinking like, I'm not going to think of, like, I can't spend all my time thinking about that and dwelling on all the money that we owe and like this insane credit card debt I have and all of this. If I spend my time thinking about that, I can't move forward. And I just remember in my mental space, I was like, I can't think that way. I just have to think positively. And I couldn't afford to go out and do like buy things and like do a bunch of stuff. But for me, it was very important to like not spend a lot of time dwelling on it. And I don't know how other people cope with it, but I mean, that was what I remember being in that phase where I was like, it's going to get better. I just like have to. And I just remember it was a very slow thing. You know, I'm like paying off $100 a month, $100 a month. And it took like 7 years to get it done. And, you know, it's tough. Even after you've been doing it 5 years, you're like, oh my God, how much longer do I have to do this?
That's right. That's right.
I mean, you know, you can get there and you can do it. But I mean, I do see the challenge there. Oh, thanks, Janet.
Bye, Janet. I also see the Rockostedy put my favorite dance is the bun dance. Ha ha ha. But I think that idea of like, you have to first have a belief that you actually can get out of this hole, which I think it's easy to lose sight of if you've been in a place of scarcity or grew up in a place of scarcity. So I'm going to keep this abundance thing in my mind. But this idea of like continuing to believe and surrounding yourself with people that have faith that if you keep taking the steps, you will actually get out of that hole and you will be okay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're so lucky that we live in a culture. I mean, there's tons of things that are wrong with the American culture, but one of the good things is that there is this belief, right? Or this underlying kind of current that, you know, anyone can make it and anyone can, you know, like be super successful, right? Where in other cultures, it's not necessarily that. So we are lucky that we live in a culture that I think supports that, even though, you know, there's a lot of other stuff there. But I do think that that's, you know, we are lucky to be in a culture that supports that and believes that in a very general way. Not everybody, but I think that that's something that we should be grateful for.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have people, role models, people who are, even if they're stumbling through, if we're stumbling through trying to figure it out, at least give an example that, providing an example that it is possible. I'm thinking about, you know, people of color, or, you know, where my dad grew up as an African-American man in the worst projects in Chicago. Like, there was no one he could look to. There were athletes and entertainers. You could be one of those two things. And if you can't make it there, then there's not anyone else doing anything that you can look up to. That's changing, which is awesome. But I feel like, again, if you're not putting yourself out there and showing that you're trying and giving a model for other people, then you're denying people of an opportunity to believe that everything is possible for them too. We have to be able to see ourselves in other people. So the more that people like us are out there, the more we're giving other people the chance to believe that they too can do it. Yeah.
Oh, and good point, Rockostedy, because we probably aren't. Yeah, I forget that. At Blab and on Periscope, there are so many people internationally. So apologies for that.
Yeah,
but you're right. Yeah, I mean, I do think that is true in America and a lot of Western cultures, really.
That's right.
But definitely not everywhere. That's true for sure. But yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you know, so much of that comes to mindset. So let me ask you something else about how you view this as a professional.
Yeah.
Because when I talk about confidence, I talk a lot about intuition and following your intuition. Like, what's your, you know, as someone who's a psychotherapist, do you ever talk about that? Or is that like too not like definable or?
I think one of the so my mind went a million places. You're asking about me as a therapist. Oh no. So there is an idea. I think most people, we have. It's hard to think clearly. It's very easy to have the unconscious narrative, the critical voice, the voices that we've kind of internalized over our life start to come in and take over, such that we can't even hear, or we don't even know what our own desire is, or how to even know what we want. So a lot of people, if they enter like a cognitive behavioral therapy, let's say, they're kind of like, oh, I want to do X and this thing gets in my way. If you enter into a longer term talk therapy, the people who come in are often people who don't even know how to say what they want. They can't, they're not in touch with themselves at all, such to say, Tiffany, I want to move towards this thing. So actually the goal of therapy is to actually help people find out their intuition or what their gut is telling them and be able to move forward. So that is absolutely essential, and that's kind of the basis of what we're trying to help our clients do. So
do you call it intuition, or do you call it something else?
I think intuition is fine. I don't have any. Yeah, intuition. Yeah, your gut maybe. Yeah. I don't use any of that with my people. I don't use any jargon. So intuition is a fantastic word.
Yeah. But when I use intuition, like, I'm thinking like, follow your inner voice and stuff. And some people think that's like a little woo woo, and I'm like, dude, that's your intuition. Like that's like that's you. That's right. You. That's the real you. Like that's right. That's not made up shit. That's like for real. That's the real shit. That's and right. And that's why I was just curious on your, like, how you guys talk about that, like as psychotherapists talk about it. But.
Well, so I'll just say a little bit about this. One of the difficulties is something that has to do with our unconscious minds. Is a lot of us have an intuition that's actually a little wonky. So maybe this comes into like, I'm going to date this guy because this guy's perfect for me. And then you find out, oh no, this is the same jackass I dated before. But this new guy, I'm going to follow my intuition, and I found this new guy who's really the perfect. So there's also difficulty when our intuition is awry or does not lead us into the right place. So we can't actually be in touch with our authentic sense of intuition. So I think that's, whether it's in a personal life or in a business, I think that's one of the primary reasons that we need to surround ourselves with people we trust and that can be direct and honest with us about what they see in terms of our life. So for a lot of people, that can be a therapist, because maybe there is no one else in your life who is where you are or trying to be where you are. So you kind of start out with a therapist and then make relationships from there. But there is this thing of like, oh, I want to start a business. I'm going to, sell widgets. And it could be the worst idea ever. But if you're just following your intuition without a grounded sense, it can lead you astray. So for you, I think you have a good sense of trusting your intuition and knowing it's going to lead you down a path that's going to be successful. Other people come up against obstacles in that. Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, I had to get I had to make some pretty big mistakes to get there. And I always laugh and say, like my intuition or the universe like hits me over the head until like I hear the message. I don't I have to hear it a lot of times, and I'm getting better at it. And I think that the more you listen and the more you pay attention to it, the stronger it gets. But I've certainly had times where I've had to get the message, like I had to get fired twice. Not once, because once did not get the message. I had to get fired twice for me to get the message, hey, this isn't what you should be doing anymore. And I always laugh about that because, that was in the course of like 9 months. And I knew I wanted to do something that first time. I was so shaken up the first time because I was like, wow, I've never been fired before. Like, and it was just like this weird thing where it was like, I don't even know what happened, but it wasn't about me. It was about that person. And I just couldn't, I really just couldn't even do anything for 6 months. I couldn't. It was really weird. And then the second time I was like, woo, awesome.
That's right.
The best thing ever. And it was like a gift. And it was so interesting. And I was like, oh, that was my practice run before. I had to have practice getting fired so I could deal with it. And now I'm good with it. So it was so funny. But I have actually many stories about that where I've been given the message many, many times and I kept ignoring it. And I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, but.
Yeah. You make me think, Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. Stephanie just joined. A lot of
Hi,
people.
Stephanie.
She's actually in my mastermind group. So one of my people
cool.
who I trust to help me think about business. You were saying something on the Periscope that I was watching earlier today about fear, and you were talking about the kinds of fear that were actually helpful and actually going into that fear and moving forward, and the kind of fears that were indications that you should actually not enter into or do that thing. So I think that's really important in terms of your intuition. It's also, I think Rockostedy said something about there are no such things as mistakes.
Yep,
so this idea of, failures actually are like you said, the whoever hitting you over the head so that you realize that's not the way to go. So if you actually start listening to those things and having friends who are saying, look, that's a sign, then you can actually move quicker towards your path of success as opposed to repeating the same patterns over and over again.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Rockostedy wants to join. Do you want to join? We're going to wrap up in a couple minutes.
Oh, that's new.
Yeah, why not? Okay.
How are you?
Hi, Rockostedy.
Hi.
Hey, I've only been in here for like 5 minutes, and I'm like crunk off of what y'all talking about.
Cool.
So tell us about yourself. Where are you?
I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm in America.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I'm in America. I'm an inspirational hip hop artist.
Very cool.
I do it full time. I believe in the power of words. You can either destroy or build. I choose to build. So I've created a custom business called Gift Wrapper. And what I do is I make custom songs where I take your mission and your vision and I translate it into song. It's my fervent belief that everybody deserves a theme song.
That's awesome.
What's your
type in your URL in the message so everyone can see it? I would love to check it out.
Me too.
Oh, hold on a second. I'm gonna drop a YouTube video because my website's down right now because I'm getting it fixed up. Let me drop a YouTube video.
Okay. Oh, I didn't even know you could do that.
I know. We're learning some stuff from this guy.
All right, so here's my YouTube video. This is my heart. Take care of it.
How do we see it?
It's gonna pop up.
Oh, I see. Great. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. That's so cool. I love it.
Yeah, and thanks for all your messages over there. Very inspirational, those things. Abundance.
I love what y'all are about. I love see, in order to change the things in our life, we have to change the things in our life. And I connect so much with what y'all are talking about because I experience a lot of fear being an independent hip hop artist, being a Filipino hip hop artist. That's something that's different. I had to fight my way through for about 15 years. And for the last 2 years, I've been able to reap the abundance of my career.
Yay.
Awesome.
Get some props for that.
Thank you.
Tell us about how you got there. Like, how did you get to that place where you were ready to like, that's a big step, and that takes a lot of courage. Like, what gave you the courage to get there and to start doing this?
Well, okay, so 4 years ago, I had a fiance, and I walked in on her cheating on me. She put me $65,000 into debt, and I literally, like, my life crashed. And so what I did was I took the last amount of money that I had and I dumped it into a studio session.
Wow.
And I decided that I was going to live out of my Mazda Miata. I was 275 pounds, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes and drinking every day. I was severely depressed. I had this emptiness in my heart, in my chest area, and lack of confidence. But I acted confident. Ego was there. And through the course of living in my car for 7 months and completing my album, I discovered the power of words. Now, look, I never smiled before, right? And if you see me right now, I probably haven't stopped smiling. Yeah. Y'all both have beautiful smiles, by the way.
Thanks.
Now, I have a lyric in one of my songs where I said, a smile filled with confidence is a dangerous kind. Add persistence to the grind and supplement it with drive. In any industry, we are dime a dozen. From DJs to MCs to the graphic designers, I choose to stand out and understand my doubts to the point that my mouth expresses what I'm truly about. You see, when I wrote that down and I said it and I recorded it and I listened to it and I rapped it in front of a whole audience, I realized that that's just like life. What we speak about, what we write about, what we think about, what we hear, what we visualize, what we see, there's so much power in all of that, and it becomes habitual. It's the story we tell ourselves. And then what I realized is I literally wrapped myself into a smile. And so as a result, I wanted to dedicate my life to sharing the message of the power of words. And it's led me into so many different arenas. I became passionate about something to the point where the word passion derives from to suffer. I wouldn't sleep. I would just travel. I would just sleep in my car. I would do free events for jails, for schools. I didn't care. I was like so excited about what I just discovered because I had a big old smile, and that's priceless. But you see, when you figure out your mission and your vision and you're so clear about it, you start to see results in your life, whether it's weight or whether it's monetary or whether it's love or whether it's a home. It's the things that are missing in our lives is because we're used to only focusing in one direction. But if you stop for a second and take a deep breath and reverse and look the other direction, you'll realize that there's other ways to do things. You'll start seeing different results. So as I kept sharing, it led me to making the theme song for Samsung Mobile. I met
Congratulations.
DMs that represent Samsung from Korea in the downstairs lobby at some point when I was hanging out at the Hotel Derrick. And then I performed it, and they signed up. I made a theme song for the
Amazing.
GS4.
Awesome.
And then that led me to making the City of Houston's theme song. You see, all it takes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
All it takes is that one little, it's like Deepak Chopra. You know, Deepak Chopra, the doctor of Oprah, and Michael Jackson is that one, you get that one. I call it a God wink, and God winks at you and says,
I love that.
You've arrived.
I love that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That's super inspiring to hear.
Yeah, you are awesome. What a wonderful story. Yeah, I would love to see your website when you're up, but I love those stories. And I find there are so many people who have stories like that where they feel like they were at like the bottom, right? Like they thought they had lost everything. And then on the other side of that was like something really wonderful. And like, that's just such a great story. I mean, every time I even think about some of the things, if someone did ask me, like, so what's the most horrible thing that happened to you? And, I've been very fortunate in my life, but I've had some weird, unfortunate things happen. And I think about them now, being past that, and think, wow, like, that was actually a gift.
That's right.
To get to this place.
And you see, Tiffany, are you a psychotherapist?
I am.
See, psychotherapists changed my life because I meet with mine. I have 4 of them, and I meet all 4 of them, and I barter with them. I help them with, public speaking or video, stuff like that. And they help me with the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is so powerful.
That's right.
It dictates 90% of our actions, decisions, because you see, we're all wounded children. I believe that everything happens during the whole formative years of our lives, whether it's abandonment or lack of love and that kind of thing. Those feelings and emotions happen when we're kids. So I'm currently writing a book called Rescuing Your Inner Child.
Awesome.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
I think that if we acknowledge the fact that we're just children inside of adult bodies, then we have so much more compassion and empathy towards one another.
Yeah. Therapists watching, and I think this is particularly important because what you're saying is that if you had not found your therapist, who knows what would have happened? They've actually been essential in helping you move forward. So therapists out there, when thinking about putting yourself out there, it is to help people. Like, I don't know, your real name, Rockostedy. Rockostedy.
Yeah, my name is Rocco.
Rocco. Okay, yeah.
Listen, psychotherapists, therapists out there, y'all have a stigma in your industry where if I'm going to one, I'm sick. Right. But I'm here to let anybody in the room know and everybody in the room know it doesn't matter whether or not you think you're sick. Everybody can benefit from collaborating with somebody that's a professional. I
love this guy. I love this guy.
No, I think he should be making like a song for the whole industry.
I agree. We need you.
Hey, I just made a theme song for acupuncture.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna put the word out.
If y'all ever feel like going to see a therapist or going to visit a psychotherapist, don't just take the drugs. Drugs. You got to be real stingent about the holistic and your choices. Find somebody that you can trust, somebody cool like Tiffany, and then divulge your life, share it, and express yourself. And once you express yourself, you allow yourself to. Okay, imagine this. Okay, I got a bunch of stuff in my hand. If I have a bunch of stuff in my hand, I can't put anything in my hand. So what do? You got to get with a professional that'll let you put those things down so you can make room for all the beautiful gifts that'll come into your life.
That's right.
Oh, I like that.
That's right.
That is a great example.
Yeah. So I just wanted to hop in and tell y'all thank you so much.
Thank you.
Light. I mean, y'all are beautiful ladies, and y'all are a great representation for the female race.
Oh,
so thank you so much. And you know, never forget that y'all are queens. So demand the respect that y'all need. All right.
Thank you, Rocco.
Awesome. Thank you for joining and sharing your story. You're amazing.
Oh, super.
I'm so glad he hopped on.
Me too. So inspiring.
Yeah, I love that story. That's so awesome.
That's right.
Unbelievable. And so we're over an hour now, so we probably should wrap it up because I know if people want to watch a replay, they're like, when is this going to end?
Not today. Not today.
This has been so great, Tiffany. So I know, do you want to talk about again the giveaway that you're doing?
Oh, yeah. So for anybody who's just joining, I have a giveaway on my site, heytiffany.com. // the change, and on that giveaway I'm going to give to one person a copy of the 5-minute journal, which I talked about earlier in the video, as essential to actually helping me move forward in my life and my business. So if you come to heytiffany.com / the change, subscribe before the end of the year. I'm going to be drawing the winner on January 1st 2016, and I'll send you the book plus a little personal note.
Oh, perfect. And I'm Christine Pereira from Soulful Selling Bootcamp. We are right now doing a free 3-video series on soulful selling. So if you go to, here's the URL, soulfulsellingbootcamp.com/videos, you can sign up and get the videos. We did the second one today, but they're all recorded. So if you sign up for the email list, I will send you guys the recordings. And then after those 3 videos are over, we are going to go more in depth if people are interested. So thank you so much, Tiffany. This was so fun.
It was so fun.
Thanks, Rockostedy. That was so awesome to have like a surprise awesome guest at the end.
That's right.
So cool.
Yeah. And Rocco is asking where you can connect with us on social media. Check out our websites, and then you can find our Twitter and Facebook.
Oh, yeah. So I'm at Soulful Selling on Twitter and on Periscope, and you're Hey Tiffany, right?
heytiffany.com, and you can find my new Twitter is @Therascope. I just typed it in, so you can find us there too. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So thank you guys.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining, and thank you for all the support. This has been amazing. And thanks for all the replay viewers if you watch the whole thing.
Yes,
well, it's so perfect. We had this like great secret thing at the end.
I know. So tell your friends too. Tell your friends.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Tiffany.
Bye. Thank you, Christine.
Okay. Bye.